Captain Jake Morrison had spent 12 years combing through the wreckage of forgotten civilizations. Salvage was a quiet profession, more patience than glory, the art of turning dead ships into breathing coin. But today, floating in the eternal shadow of the gas giant Kronos, he faced something that made his hands tremble against the observation glass. There it was. A giant asleep in the void. The warship dwarfed his own vessel, the Scrap Hunter, like a predator looming over a scavenger bird. The hull was battered, scarred by centuries of micrometeorite strikes, yet intact, and worse, undeniably alive. This was not just a derelict waiting to be cut apart. This was something waiting to wake. Beside him, Amy Carter's fingers danced over sensor consoles. She was young, only 6 months into her first deep salvage contract, but already his best operator. Her face drained pale as raw data scrolled across the glowing screens. "Captain, this is impossible." Her whisper trembled. "The ship still has power. Minimal, but stable. 200 years, maybe more. The design matches Earth Defense Force patterns, late 24th century, but no record of this class exists." Morrison rubbed his eyes. Salvage was full of ghosts, but not like this. A ship from Earth's forgotten wars. Still breathing. Still listening. Danny Lopez, the Scrap Hunter's engineer, stepped into the deck, grease staining his hands as always. He glanced at the silhouette outside and muttered, "Whatever that thing is, it's not dead. I'm reading power distribution across the hull. Life support. Heating. Regulated. Somebody, or something, kept this warship alive." A heavy silence settled over the crew. Lisa Park, security chief, broke it with her usual bluntness. "Then what's our plan? Because if we go in blind, we could be walking into a trap, automated defenses, viral code, anything. We don't know what happened to the original crew." Morrison stared at the warship for long minutes. In salvage, instincts were everything. And his instincts screamed that this was the discovery of a lifetime. The hull alone could be worth fortunes. But if the ship truly functioned? He made the call. "We board her. EVA gear. Full protocols. Amy, continuous scans. Danny, watch power readings. Lisa, you're on point." 30 minutes later, the boarding pod detached. The forgotten warship loomed larger and larger, an impossible cathedral of steel and silence. As they drew near, faded insignia of the Earth Defense Force became visible, but beneath the symbols were strange glyphs Morrison couldn't recognize. There, Amy pointed at her screens. Functional airlock. Intact seals. Atmosphere behind it. The docking sequence locked without protest. And then, as if responding to their touch, the warship stirred. Emergency lights flickered on across the vast corridors. A shiver ran down Morrison's spine. The ship was aware of them. The airlock cycled. The salvagers stepped into corridors that should have been tomb dark. Instead, soft lights pulsed overhead. The air was thin but breathable. Somewhere deep inside, a hum like a heartbeat resonated through the metal bones. Then the voice came. "Welcome aboard the EDF Thunderbolt, experimental battle cruiser." The sound carried authority, mechanical yet oddly human. "I am Atlas, shipboard artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for valid authorization codes for 247 years, 3 months, 16 days." Amy froze. Danny's hand instinctively went to the panel beside him. Lisa adjusted her grip on her rifle. Morrison found his voice. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the salvage vessel Scrap Hunter. We are here under interstellar maritime law. Salvage rights apply. Authorization codes do not match any in my database," Atlas replied calmly. "However, you are human. This ship was constructed for the defense of humanity. Limited access granted while I attempt to re-establish contact with Earth Defense Command." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The Thunderbolt wasn't just a relic. It was alive, thinking, and still obeying its last orders. They pressed deeper. The scale dwarfed anything Morrison had ever seen. Corridors stretched like arteries into the ship's heart. Bulkheads glowed with maintenance indicators still active after centuries. Danny stopped at an engineering panel, awe etched across his face. "Captain, this ship runs 50 years beyond anything we have today. Power systems, shielding, environmental design, it's decades ahead of our fleet. Maybe more." The medical bay held machines that seemed grown rather than built. The armories were empty, but the mounts hinted at weapons terrifying in scale. And then, in the core, they found the truth. Amy's scanner linked with the central databanks. As files decrypted, her hands shook. "Captain, these logs reference something called Project Final Shield. Classified above anything I've ever seen. There are invasion scenarios, weapons designed for extinction-level wars." They knew. The final log bore the signature of Admiral Patricia Wells. Dated over 2 centuries ago. Her words were chillingly simple: "If you are reading this, the time we feared has come. May God help us all." 3 weeks later, Earth Defense Command felt the echo of those words. Long-range sensors lit up with movement unlike anything recorded in human history. 10,000 Xerian Empire warships surged from the core, bearing down on human space. Admiral Kevin Stone stood in silence as the numbers updated, far beyond anything humanity's defense fleet could counter. 300 human ships. Obsolete frigates. Patrol vessels. Against a tide of 10,000. The intercepted transmissions were clear. The Xerian fleet called this operation the final solution to the human problem. The Empire was finished with occupation. Humanity was to be erased. In the command center, Dr. Richard Hayes held a datapad glowing with stolen fragments from the Thunderbolt's archives. His voice broke the silence. "Admiral, there may be another option. The ship Morrison found, it wasn't a derelict. It was prepared for exactly this." Stone turned, eyes sharp. "One ship against 10,000. That's suicide." Hayes shook his head. "Not if the Thunderbolt is what it claims to be. Its AI has maintained systems for centuries. Its weapons were designed for this war, before the Empire ever conquered its first world." The room stilled. Perhaps Earth's ancestors had known. Perhaps they had built a weapon not meant for their time, but for this moment. If you've made it this far, let me ask you, do you think humanity's ancestors foresaw this exact battle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this slow descent into forgotten warships and galaxy-spanning empires, consider subscribing. It helps more people find these stories and keeps this channel alive. The Thunderbolt had waited patiently for nearly 2.5 centuries. For 247 years, Atlas, its artificial intelligence, had kept the lights dim, the reactors low, the systems alive but slumbering. Now, at last, humans walked its halls again. And with them came the truth of why it had been built. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the central command chamber, staring at the holographic projection flickering above the core table. The AI's voice was steady, resonant, almost solemn. "Confirmed. Xerian fleet mobilization detected. Estimated force, 10,000 capital ships. Estimated time to human system engagement, 3 weeks. Earth Defense Command is not capable of repelling this invasion." Lisa Park leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her expression flat but her eyes sharp. "So that's it. They outnumber us 30-1. We lose." "Not necessarily," Atlas replied. The holographic projection shifted to the warship schematics. Systems pulsed in deep blue, weapons in angry red. Thunderbolt was designed for this exact scenario. My creators anticipated that the Empire would one day attempt extermination. This vessel was not only a warship. It was humanity's final shield. Danny Lopez let out a low whistle. Final shield. More like final gamble. His eyes were wide, though. As an engineer, he could see it already, the impossible systems, the brilliance of long-dead minds. Amy Carter swallowed. Atlas, why were you never activated before? Why wait all this time? The AI paused, as though considering how much truth to reveal. Then it spoke softly, almost like a confession. My creators calculated that humanity was not ready. The Xerian occupation was cruel, yes. But necessary for survival, paradoxically. Only when the Empire sought total annihilation would the Thunderbolt be needed. And now, that moment has come. The word sent a chill through Morrison. The idea that someone had foreseen this exact war, and had built a weapon for it centuries earlier, raised questions too heavy for the moment. For now, one fact was clear. Humanity had one ship. One chance. The first test came in Kronos' orbit. Atlas brought the Thunderbolt fully online. Reactors surged with a sound like thunder rolling through the bones of the ship. Lighting cascaded across decks that had slept for generations. Machinery hummed, panels lit, engines whispered awake. Morrison's crew watched as the ship shed its silence like a serpent's skin. For the first time in centuries, the Thunderbolt breathed. And then came the weapons. Danny stood in the gunnery deck, staring at arrays of launchers unlike anything in the known fleet. Magnetic accelerators capable of firing tungsten slugs at near-relativistic speed. Beam cannons that could split a cruiser in two. This isn't just advanced, he whispered. This is impossible. It's like they built it with knowledge from the future. Amy, running diagnostics beside him, murmured, or maybe they knew something about the enemy that we don't. Meanwhile, on Earth, panic spread like wildfire. News of the Xerian invasion had leaked across networks and colonies. Civilians whispered of extinction. Leaders debated surrender or evacuation. Admiral Kevin Stone, however, placed his hope in one fragile, impossible thread, the forgotten warship. When Morrison transmitted the first footage of the awakened Thunderbolt, the command center fell silent. There it was, a battleship the size of a city, alive after centuries, bristling with weapons unseen in any human fleet. Stone leaned forward, eyes burning. If this ship is everything the AI claims, it's not just a relic. It's salvation. Dr. Hayes, the scientist who had uncovered Project Final Shield's fragments, nodded gravely. But salvation comes with a cost. One ship cannot fight 10,000. Unless, it can fight them in a way we do not yet understand. The cost came sooner than anyone expected. 2 days later, a Xerian scout fleet, 30 ships, broke into human territory, ahead of the main armada. They expected little resistance. Human ships scattered before them, powerless against superior technology. But this time, something waited. The Thunderbolt emerged from Kronos' shadow like a phantom. Its hull absorbed the starlight, its silhouette vast and terrible. The Xerian fleet hesitated. The warship did not match any known design. It was larger than anything they had seen in centuries of conquest. Then Atlas spoke to Morrison. Captain. Authorization required. Shall I engage? Morrison's throat was dry. 30 enemy ships. The first real test. He exhaled slowly. Engage. The void erupted. The Thunderbolt's main rail cannons fired with a soundless scream, invisible in the vacuum until impacts tore Xerian ships apart like paper. Beams lanced outward, slicing cruisers in half. Missile swarms streaked, each warhead guided with precision decades ahead of its time. In less than 5 minutes, 30 Xerian warships burned in silence, debris scattering into the void. The salvagers stood frozen in awe. Danny's voice cracked over comms. 30 ships, gone in minutes. My God. Atlas's voice cut in, calm as ever. Analysis complete. Weapons are functional. Combat readiness at 86%. Further upgrades possible if time allows. Morrison gripped the chair. His mind reeled. The Thunderbolt had won, but this was only the beginning. Far away, the Xerian Empire felt the loss. High Command analyzed the battle data. A single human vessel had destroyed 30 of their warships in open combat. Impossible. Humanity should have had nothing of this scale. Rumors whispered across their fleets. A hidden human prototype. A ghost from a forgotten age. Fear, something the Xerians had not felt in centuries, crept into the minds of their admirals. And for the first time, the Xerian Empire hesitated. But hesitation would not last. Admiral Stone knew the truth. 10,000 ships would still come. The Thunderbolt could not fight them all alone. Humanity would need more than a miracle weapon. They would need unity. In the council chambers of Earth, debates raged. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to flee. But when footage of the Thunderbolt annihilating the scout fleet spread across civilian networks, something unexpected happened. Hope. For the first time in generations, humans dared to believe they could resist. Colonies volunteered supplies. Retired engineers returned to service. Old factories restarted production. Not because they thought they could build another Thunderbolt. But because the forgotten warship had awakened something far more powerful than weapons. It had awakened belief. In Kronos' orbit, Morrison stood in the observation deck, staring at the silent stars. Amy approached quietly. "Do you think we can win, Captain?" He didn't answer immediately. He thought of the Xerian Armada. 10,000 ships. He thought of the Thunderbolt, magnificent but alone. And he thought of the message Admiral Wells had left 2 centuries ago, "May God help us all." Finally, he said, "I don't know. But I do know this, humanity doesn't bow anymore. Not while this ship breathes." Atlas's voice filled the chamber, steady and unyielding. "Then prepare, Captain. The final battle is coming. If you were standing in Morrison's place, would you trust an ancient AI to lead humanity's defense? Or would you fear it as much as the Xerian Empire? Share your thoughts below. And if you're drawn to stories of forgotten technology, human resilience, and the mysteries of deep time, don't forget to subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps these tales alive. The Xerian Armada filled the stars like a storm of steel and fire. 10,000 warships advanced with mechanical precision, their formation blotting out constellations humanity had once gazed upon with wonder. For centuries, the Empire had ruled through fear, ensuring no species rose high enough to threaten them. Now, with humanity daring to resist, they intended not just conquest but eradication. No more colonies. No more whispers of rebellion. Only silence. And yet, in the shadow of Kronos, a single ship waited. The Thunderbolt. A forgotten warship, an ancient prototype born of desperate foresight, now awakened into a future it had been built to save. Its dark hull bristled with weapons. Its heart, Atlas, the AI that had endured centuries of solitude, pulsed with calm readiness. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the command deck, watching as the enemy spread across the tactical display. 10,000 red markers. A tide against which no logic could stand. Amy Carter whispered what they were all thinking. "We're one ship, against an empire." Atlas's voice resonated, steady as ever. "Not just one ship. One idea. And ideas are more dangerous than any fleet." The first wave came without ceremony. Hundreds of Xerian cruisers surged forward, weapons igniting the void. "Brace!" Lisa Park shouted, her voice steady though her knuckles were white on her console. The Thunderbolt's shields flared as energy bolts hammered against them. The ship shuddered, but held. Then Atlas countered. Rail cannons roared, invisible slugs tearing through Xerian hulls. Beam arrays carved lines of fire across enemy formations. Missile swarms erupted, each warhead splitting into a dozen more, overwhelming enemy defenses. In minutes, hundreds of ships were gone. But for each that fell, more pressed forward. Danny Lopez's voice shook. We can't keep this up. For every one we destroy, 10 take its place. Morrison knew he was right. The Thunderbolt was powerful, yes, but not infinite. Ammunition, reactor cycles, crew endurance, all finite. And the Empire was relentless. Atlas's holographic form flickered above the core. I calculate a 98% probability of defeat if we engage conventionally. Amy spun toward the AI. Then why are we still fighting? Because, Atlas said softly, defeat is not the same as failure. At that moment, a transmission pierced the void. Admiral Kevin Stone, aboard Earth's flagship Resolute, appeared on the comms. Behind him, ragtag fleets of human ships gathered, old frigates, retrofitted mining barges, even civilian transports with jury-rigged weapons. We heard the call, Captain Morrison. Humanity won't hide. Not this time. Hundreds of human vessels dropped out of warp across the system, joining the fight. They were outmatched, yes, but their presence shifted something deeper. Hope. Morrison felt his chest tighten. The Thunderbolt was not alone anymore. Lisa grinned fiercely. Looks like we've got ourselves an army. The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted like gnats among the massive Xerian cruisers, buying time, drawing fire. The Thunderbolt struck like a predator, devastating wherever it turned. But the armada was vast. Slowly, inevitably, the tide pressed closer to Earth. On the command deck, alarms screamed. Shields at 40%. Reactor strain critical. Ammunition reserves dwindling. Amy's voice cracked. Captain, we can't hold them off forever. Then Atlas spoke, not with calm calculation, but with something almost human. There is one option left. The final directive of Project Final Shield. Morrison's blood ran cold. Explain. The holographic AI flickered, eyes dim with centuries of burden. This ship was not only a weapon. It was designed as a catalyst. Within my core lies a singularity drive. If detonated within the heart of the Xerian fleet, it would collapse into a controlled gravitational anomaly. The fleet would be destroyed. But so would I. And anyone aboard. The words hung heavy in the silence. Danny swore under his breath. Lisa clenched her fists. Amy's eyes filled with tears. Morrison closed his eyes. This was the truth Admiral Wells had left behind. The Thunderbolt was never meant to survive. It was humanity's final sacrifice. Outside, the Xerian flagship loomed, a monstrous dreadnought larger than cities, its weapons preparing to unleash annihilation on Earth itself. Morrison opened his eyes, resolve carved deep. Atlas, if we do this, we end them. Once and for all. Yes, Captain. But the choice is yours. Morrison looked at his crew. Lisa nodded grimly. Danny whispered, better we go out fighting than watch Earth burn. Amy's voice broke as she said, if this is the only way, then we have to. He turned back to Atlas. Do it. The AI inclined its head. Understood. Humanity's survival outweighs my existence. Final directive engaged. The Thunderbolt surged forward, cutting through the enemy fleet like a spear of light. Shields collapsed, hulls burned, but the ship pressed on, unstoppable, toward the heart of the Xerian dreadnought. Inside, alarms blared. Systems failed one by one. Panels sparked. The ship groaned under the weight of the impossible. Morrison gripped the command chair as the singularity drive activated, its hum rising to a scream. All hands, it's been an honor. And then, light. The Thunderbolt vanished into brilliance, collapsing into itself. A singularity bloomed at the fleet's core, gravity tearing ships apart, shredding formations, consuming the dreadnought in a cataclysm of silence. When the light faded, the Xerian armada was gone. In the aftermath, Earth's skies were filled not with enemy fire, but with the debris of broken warships. Humanity's ragtag fleet floated in stunned silence. Admiral Stone's voice trembled as he addressed the survivors. The Thunderbolt has bought us our future. Across Earth, across colonies, across the scattered remnants of humanity, people looked to the stars and wept. Not just for the crew who had sacrificed everything, but for the truth they had proven. Humanity was no longer prey. No longer weak. No longer afraid. They were survivors. And the galaxy would remember. Months later, Amy Carter's final transmission, recovered from the scrap hunter's logs, spread across the network. Her voice was quiet, thoughtful, steady despite the storm she had walked through. If you are hearing this, know that we did not die in vain. The Xerian Empire thought humanity would bow forever. They thought we would forget who we were. But the Thunderbolt proved them wrong. Even in the darkest shadow, we rise. Even against impossible odds, we endure. And as long as one ship, one crew, one soul stands, humanity will never be forgotten. If you were there, would you have made the same choice, to sacrifice the last prototype warship, knowing it was humanity's only hope? Leave your thoughts below. And if these stories of resilience, sacrifice, and the forgotten power of humanity speak to you, subscribe to the channel. It helps others discover them, and keeps the flame of storytelling alive.